I get asked lots of questions in my role as CEO of CV pilots and resume pilots. And one of the questions is applying still useful, or is everything done behind closed doors these days? And so my view on that is yes, applying for a job is still important, but it needs to be, I think the biggest misconception is that leaders think of it as being the start of the process. In reality, for most successful executives in those C-suite roles, the application is the final step. It's the formality after essentially you're 80% of the way in. The highest yield opportunities very rarely begin on job boards. You will see some at that CEO level, but very rarely. At least 75% of the job market is in fact hidden. And the majority of that 75% will be for those really senior positions. These opportunities begin in rooms that you're not in yet. And they're particularly going to be useful to you if you've got a reputation, referrals, and relevance that get you into those rooms before anybody even knows that there's a role. So let's think about the pathways, the different pathways, and your chances of traction, really. So an online application, you are going to be competing. I mean, I say about 500, but that's probably on the conservative side these days. So let's just say 500, but it's probably more. You're competing with 500 strangers. Now, compare that with going onto a recruiter shortlist. You might then be one of 8 to 10 trusted profiles. However, if it's through an introduction or a referral, your reputation, chances are that you'll be one of two, maybe three, being people that are being actively considered. So applications introduce you as one of many. Introductions position you as one of few. My name's Zoe Price. I'm the CEO of Resume Pilots and CV Pilots. We're a global career consultancy. So when you're relying on applications alone, that is very likely to fail you at executive level. Because hiring teams are not just asking, can they do the job? What they're asking is who already trusts this person and who is already speaking their name, who's willing to speak their name. Now, that comes purely through your reputation. It's about, if nobody knows you in your network, then you're invisible. And it's not because of your capability, you're invisible because of your visibility, because of your proximity, because of your profile, because of your reputation. That is what makes you visible. So even when you're not in a room, if somebody is already trusts you and is already willing to speak your name, that is the potential to damage their own reputation. So they're only going to do that if you're good. But if you've got a reputation, you will be visible, not because you're more capable, but because you have built a reputation and you've networked with people who are willing to speak your name when you're not there. So here are some practical ways that you can move from, rather than worrying about applying for roles, but about being invited to roles. So you need to get on a recruiter's radar early. This is people who are looking at retained search, that's executive search, that's very senior recruitment, not job boards. So you're looking at getting on recruiters' radars early. And what you're doing there is you are meeting with these people before there isn't any kind of opportunity for you. You're not reaching out because of an active opportunity unless there is something very specific. But really you should be building your team of recruiters where they don't have a live role for you, but you are getting on their radar and you are maintaining those relationships over time. You need to be signaling thought leadership. So that's on LinkedIn. Maybe it's on LinkedIn groups. Maybe it's at conferences. Maybe it's in forums, the sector forums. You need, and through your network, you need to be positioning yourself as a thought leader. That doesn't take as much time as you might think, and I've covered that in other videos, but you need to really be making sure that you're visible and that you have a point of view worth listening to. Then you track hiring triggers. So hiring trigger, set up a Google alert for the number of companies that you're looking for, or even aspects of things like funding rounds, new CEO appointments, mergers and acquisition shifts, uh, things like that, or industry trends for your sector, because those will pick out companies that are looking to move around, looking to reposition their leadership team. And then finally, you need and what I call an inside team. So 5 to maybe 10 people. These are people who are really well connected. They're door openers, as I call them. They are people like people within their chamber or an industry group or the institute directors or the US versions of all of those sorts of organizations. You're looking for recruiters and you're looking for industry big hitters. Who's the big hitters in your sector that you can have on your side that when an opening comes up, they tip the wink. They let you know that is a role that's coming up. So I won't mention names, but we worked with a COO, so Chief Operations Officer, recently. She had been unsuccessfully applying for about 6 months, literally not hearing anything. So we shifted the strategy. So yes, of course, we rewrote her resume, but it wasn't just about that. We said to her, no more applying through job boards or portals or anything online. Instead, what you need to do is build relationships with a small number of industry executive search partners. So these are people who are looking at that level, who are not actively advertising, but building relationships with those people that will have those roles as they come up. And then, therefore, you will be front of mind in that to them. She also reconnected with a couple of former peers who would be people who would knew her, trusted her, and would speak her name in their circles. Her next role, there was no job board, there was no advert, nothing. She was literally called directly by a board member. Now, let's be very clear. That's how she got her next role, not because she was lucky, but because she increased her visibility. So, applications are the paperwork, not the front end of the job search. You need to position yourself such that roles will come to you. And if you haven't already discussed, if you haven't already been discussed by the organization and probably talked directly to the organization, you are going to be starting from the back of the line. You need to make sure that you're at the front of the line. That's how you find C-suite roles, particularly in today's market.